We did our Unveiling video presentation on police brutality. I am Amanda Watts.
I'm Evan James.
I'm Anthony Marino.
I'm Dakota DeCuffa.
And I'm Brady Dalton.
Okay, so we chose police brutality because it's a very common topic on social media right now. Events have happened in like our presentation's hometowns, like the Baltimore riots is my hometown, so it was a very popular event for me to do. It has increased nationally for all the events, and it has become a racism issue nationwide. Okay, so why to inform listeners on the Baltimore riots? I did this to show that violence is not the answer. Informing the audience about the riots was to show that looting businesses and burning down buildings are not the answer to earning police justice. So as you saw in our video that Gray's family had asked the people to like stop protesting, like burning down buildings and looting homes and like nursing homes being burned down was not the answer. This was in our video. As you see, they quoted like, "This is not justice, this is a way for people to steal stuff." His family believed like it wasn't even for them anymore.
So for my presentation on police brutality, I chose the Martise Johnson case because it shows the different levels of police brutality. Like for instance, you can have a verbal argument, excessive use of force, blood drawn, and death. And for Martise Johnson, he was beaten to blood drawing during his arrest, and an example of a death case would be Trayvon Martin's case. Martise is a UVA college student in Virginia, and I think that this issue is relatable to UK students because he's a college student. And during his arrest, it was at the scene of an incident that took place at the bars, and it involved a fake ID, which a lot of college students are involved with fake IDs. A lot of college students go out to bars, so I think that's really relatable. He was racially charged. A lot of people think that the ABC agents racially profiled him, and that's why they were so abusive towards him. The charges on Johnson were dropped because he technically did not have a fake ID. He is legally 21 years old, and he was not causing any obstruction whatsoever. And Johnson says, he stated this to Washington Times. He said, "In terms of change, I want to see a stronger openness to diverse culture and acceptance." Johnson says, "I've seen too many instances of people being judged for their initial appearances and then those judgments being disproven. It is time that we all see each other as equals and give one another the fair chance that we deserve." And here's a video. We're just going to show a little clip of the arrest so you can see the severity of it. Right there's good. Okay, so I'm going to do a big screen. So here you can see that they're pushing him to the ground very abusively. And I muted the video, but in the video he's asking why they were doing this to him, that there was no reason, and they were accusing the ABC agents of being racist and that this was unnecessary. In this point in the video you can see his head smashed on the ground and there's blood splattered everywhere. And here is when he is telling them that they were being racist towards him and he had no clue why he was being arrested.
So I tried to focus on the importance of smaller events mainly. When people hear about, police brutality or similar things, they always think of the larger events like the Ferguson or Baltimore riots. And these are still really important, but due to the way that they're spread nationally all over media and other mediums, they can sometimes withhold important information or like change or twist the way that it's presented that actually happened. The small events have a greater chance to allow you to view the situation from both sides, as there's just more evidence and there's less chance for it to be twisted by media and other sorts of news types. And this is extremely important when trying to decide the ways to prevent these situations. If you don't have the whole picture, there's no way that you can accurately pick a solution or try to even bring up one. Like I said, it allows us to help make more informed decisions we can usually, hopefully, get the ability to view what happened from both sides and try and place appropriate blame, and then from that decide who can do something better in order to change it. In my case, I mostly focus on the Keith McLeod case, which was very close to Baltimore, and it's very obvious in this case that both sides make very big mistakes. The victim himself broke the law and then threatened the officer who arrived on the scene, saying things like, "I'm going to kill you," which obviously will immediately provoke the officer. And the officer used lethal force where it wasn't necessary. He was completely unarmed and there was no reason for that. It's very clear that from just these few little things that there was no reason that this should have happened in this way, and that both sides have about a fair amount of blame for what occurred here.
For primary sources, we decided to do interviews and surveys, and the reason why is because direct information through an interview or another primary source is the best way to get information because it eliminates the middleman, and if the information comes through the middleman, it could easily get distorted or whatever. So we did our interviews involving UK students to find more information about the relationship between the police and the public. And we thought it was the easiest way to cover what we were talking about and get necessary information.
Okay, so I chose to do my portion on police programs, and the idea behind it is to have a way for the police and the public to both express their opinions and concerns, and it gives both sides a voice and both an opportunity to be involved. But the main thing is that it's a non-violent setting, so although it seems like it's just a small town meeting, it really does make a big difference in the long run because the police and the public are able to build lasting relationships and they'll seem more approachable. So it's like the goal was to get the public on board with understanding that police brutality is a problem, so this gives them a good opportunity to meet and make the community better.
So one of the secondary sources we used was from the Baltimore riots, and I used this source a lot. This was probably one of my biggest sources that I relied on. It was a timeline of the riots, and it started right at Freddie Gray's funeral and went to that evening when like the National Guard was sent into the city and the mayor like made a curfew. This source was just really helpful to me because, as you can see on the PowerPoint, it has like direct times and just like they were like small statements just to like show our viewers that the riots escalated very quickly and it was violently, and like fire hoses were being stabbed, there were buildings being burned down, there were buildings being looted. It was just a great amount of violence that wasn't needed. And then I also retrieved a lot of images from this. During my video, I was talking about this timeline and had multiple images circling through about every 4 seconds, and all of them were from the CNN website. I thought it was a great source to use just because it allowed me to know that there wasn't a lot of bias in it, because I struggled trying to find articles that didn't have bias in them. So since I knew that CNN is a kind of reliable, but since the article was just a timeline, it was just telling us what was happening, I knew there wasn't any bias, and I knew it was a good way to show readers like what was going on in the city. And
these are a few examples that I used for my secondary sources. I used CBS Interactive, Huffington Post, Washington Times, US News, The Guardian, and NBC News. And I use this because they're very well known to the media, they're very well known to viewers who are trying to follow these incidents. And they're not biased, they include plenty of images, and they're definitely reliable sources. If someone sees information from one of these websites, they depend on it and they agree that it's truthful.
So secondary sources were extremely important in just showcasing exactly what happens in these smaller events. I had a bunch of different secondary sources, but two mainly showed this point very well. Usually they're able to show, hopefully, the point of view from both sides. However, this was not the case in this one. Two main articles. One was from the Baltimore Sun, which is a local newspaper or online article media from the Baltimore area. It didn't really talk about anything about the officer at all. It mostly focused on the victim's point of view and tried to get you to sympathize with them. They had quotes from family and friends, almost nothing from exactly what the officer's point of view had. And it didn't talk about any of the things that he really did wrong in this way. However, on the opposite side of that, Vice News, which is a more worldwide media source, focused almost entirely on the officer's point of view. It included things that was omitted from Baltimore Sun's article, like the fact that he shouted profanities at the officer, and it also had things that highlight the officer. The chief said a quote about how he was one of his finest. But in this way, since you're able to research both of them, you're able to gain the full story by viewing all of these articles together. And without this, we would not be able to make an informed decision about what to do in these cases.
Okay, so to help understand programs, I started researching programs that have already been installed and that were working in their community. So I found the Houston Positive Interaction Program that they call PIP, and basically I wanted to know like how they ran these meetings and what happened, and essentially it was just kind of the public could ask questions and the police could say like why they take action the way they do, and it was really open and they wanted everyone to be comfortable and have an opportunity to have a voice so that a relationship could be formed. So to understand whether or not the programs were working, I did research on crime rate, and so this graph shows the crime. So in 2012 there's a lot of crime, and in 2015 after programs have been in use there's been like a dramatic decrease. So I think that shows that the programs are working and can be installed in other places.
Alright, for primary sources, you guys see this in the PSA video, this pie chart, these questions in these slides, but the first question was, you think that the police force in general is racist towards civilians? And I asked this question because just to determine if there was in fact racial tension between the police force and the public, and which would definitely spark disagreements. The second question was also a survey, and it asked, overall, do you feel safe with the police force? And once I determined that people in the first question said that they did not think there was racial tension between the police force and the public, I had to figure out that even if they weren't racist, did they think that they were ultimately safe if the police force is ever involved in a certain situation? It is natural for them to oppose the thing that is threatening them if they do feel unsafe, and this could cause a division. Alright, during this portion of the PSA, I interviewed a young African-American male from LA, from Compton, which is one of the most notorious cities for gang violence. And I interviewed him because he said that he has had a lot of interaction with police officers, not because he himself was a bad person, but because he was a citizen of one of the most notorious places for gang violence. He has seen a lot of police brutality cases in which they abuse their power just to control the situation. I asked him about riots and what he thought caused them, but go ahead. This is Eric Prebzak. I interviewed him and another man named Emmanuel. Can you click real quick? Alright, and you can go back. I used them in an interview because I thought they had valuable information. Eric's cousin is a police officer, and Emmanuel is from Atlanta, which is the is the city that is 6th in crime in the United States. And they had actually really good points. Before I interviewed them, I actually had conversations with them, which ultimately led me to interview them. They had certain viewpoints about how the media corresponds with the events going on, and how sometimes the media, kind of like makes it more of a big deal than it has. They actually said that, Eric actually said that the media tends to focus on the most extreme cases, which they do, which gives them viewers, while Emmanuel said that the police officers' aggression for the job is necessary because they have to control situations, deal with certain people, which makes them naturally more violent. Go ahead.
I also conducted an interview with a UK student just to see what their opinion of a police program would be and if they think that they would work and help in our community. And I wanted to know if we installed them here, would they even attend?
So we made a Twitter website about police brutality, and we tweeted out a lot of things that have to do with our events, and we spread awareness all throughout the media. And we chose this because it's an easy way to represent this idea to people, because people nowadays are constantly on Twitter, constantly getting information from the website. And we did include links to our stories so everyone could go view our stories on the websites like Washington Post and Huffington Post and all those. And this is a great way to spread awareness. Like I said, people in this generation are constantly on Twitter, and it's a great way to get people of our age to be aware of the incident.
We also created a brochure because it would be another way to spread awareness easily, and it's an easy form of communication, and we basically made it to be a condensed version of our PSA project, so everyone could understand the large events, the small events, the interviews, and the programs that we did.
So we formatted our video in a very specific way, mainly just to provide the easiest transitions between them and in an order that they made sense. We first began with Amanda. She did the larger events. These are the mainstream national events that everybody knows about, and it's a great way to get them interested in our topic. And then we transitioned over to smaller events, and this just is a great way to show all the events that go on without people even knowing about them. And then following that, we did interviews with local people to get their take on what is happening and how they think it affects their lives and everything around them, and how they reacted to these events as well. And then we finished off with the programs and the ways that we could hopefully maybe help make this better, or things that could improve situations like these, just to kind of finish up and at the end of the video so that it explains all the previous ones.
So I did my style and tone in my video. I began my video with the multiple headlines of all police brutality. Big reason was because I was first in the video, and I didn't just want to jump start into my video. That just wasn't a really good way to intro it. So I did other headlines from other events, and then I had the last two be Baltimore headlines to transition into my topic. I also had multiple images used throughout the riots. I did this instead of a video because I thought a lot of the videos were very violent, and I thought that it might also turn away our viewers. They might think of it as me trying to persuade people by showing videos. So I just stuck with images and rotated them through multiple images. I had a bunch to get people to have the idea. You can see here, this is the city up in flames at night. They were burning houses, they were burning nursing homes, they were burning schools. It was ridiculous. So I decided to stick with images just so I had a better showing an opinion for my topic.
So we had sort of an overall tone and style for our paper. Mostly, especially the smaller events, we tried to make clear that there is not one side to these arguments. There is always something in between that muddles it, and how both people can contribute to these events from the officer side or even the victim side. And this was just an extremely important thing, because without this you cannot make an informed decision or assumption of what happened.
Okay, and I chose to add graphic pictures of Martise Johnson in my PowerPoint slides because it shows the severity of the issue of how the ABC agents treated him. He had to get 10 stitches in his head after his skull was crushed open and there was blood splattered everywhere. And I also included some direct quotes from Martise himself, and also from some viewers and witnesses that were at the scene, because that gives some opinions and information firsthand.
Okay, so the programs went at the end because, like I said earlier, the goal was to get the audience to get on board with understanding that we need these programs. So the idea was to present all of the issues first so that the audience will want to make a change because they'll understand how much of a problem this is. and the programs kind of offer a solution to help end police brutality.
In conclusion, guys, we decided to do this police brutality because it was necessary to make a difference in our community. We need to reduce the occurrences of which this happens. It's not good for all of us to be divisive in our society. This division, as we've seen, have caused violence, and violence is not an answer to our problems. And in order to do this, we need to spread awareness, because if no one is aware, I'm sure most of the people now are aware because of all these big stories that have happened, but people that are not so informed, like they don't know a lot of information about the subject, they need to know, because it's the only way to stop and reduce these occurrences from happening.